On this episode of my great movie series, it's the acknowledged masterpiece by the Marx Brothers, their 1933 war send-up, Duck Soup. Coming up next. So Duck Soup is the fifth Marx Brothers movie. They made 5 in about 5 years in the early 1930s, and of course this is the time of the Great Depression in the United States. And this is described ordinarily as an anarchic comedy. By the word anarchic describing Duck Soup, I think people mean that the brothers like to make fun of everything, and they tear down all things that are held sacred and in high esteem. In this movie, they attack or make fun of the politics of early 20th century nationalism, but in particular nationalism that leads to war and war fever. So the movie has such a loose plot, maybe the plot doesn't even matter, but it involves a new president or prime minister of a fake country named Freedonia, and his name is Rufus T. Firefly, played by Groucho Marx. He's a bumbling idiot, but he's also interested in marrying the Margaret Dumont character, who is a rich woman. There's a diplomat from a neighboring country of Sylvania, and Rufus T. Firefly is constantly insulting this ambassador, to the point where by the end of the movie, Freedonia and Sylvania go to war.
Your Excellency, haven't we seen each other somewhere before?
I don't think so. I'm not sure I'm seeing you now. It must be something I ate.
Along the way, Chico Marx and Harpo Marx play spies for the nation of Sylvania. They're spying on Rufus T. Firefly of Freedonia. Now, describing the plot doesn't even really matter that much, because this movie, like the previous 4 Marx Brothers movies, are a series of gags. Particularly vaudeville gags, because of course the brothers came from vaudeville. One could say this movie is sort of a clown show. When I show this to my children, they just chuckle and laugh at it non-stop. However, there are many serious things going on in this movie, and you must watch it for the final 15 minutes. My wild bet is that a lot of you may not find the first 40 to 45 minutes amusing. Unless you watch it with children. That's been my own personal experience, is that I've not appreciated this movie until I watched it with my children. But the last 10 to 15 minutes contain so many moments of inspiration, and it feels so fresh and alive, that I think if you're watching videos, making videos, you're going to come away from Duck Soup inspired to do things differently. In the last 10 to 15 minutes, Freedonia goes to war with Sylvania, and the brothers use all kinds of editing techniques to make jokes. I hinted that this movie is an attack on nationalism. By that, I really mean I think that this movie is making fun of and making strong points about World War I. You could say this movie is actually an attack on all of American history, and by attack, I mean a gentle one. There is, of course, in the end, moments when the Rufus T. Firefly character switches costumes and hats, and he goes through various American military costumes. There's also the fact that Freedonia, although a fake country, is actually based on a breakaway, or would-be breakaway, Texas Republic that tried to become its own country in the 19th century. So in a way, this movie is commenting on United States history, but I prefer to watch it as a send-up of the lead-in to World War I, and the frenzy that the European countries took in particular, later America itself, when it was going into World War I. The jubilation and ecstasy of entering to war, war fever, the great musical scene where everybody in the hall of politicians swoons and wails and cheers for war. Then you have the entry into war with the Paul Revere scene, where Harpo Marx goes from house to house and not only tells people that war is happening, but seduces the women of a town. This is a really underhanded joke, but it's got a lot of truth in it, where adultery and unfortunately rape happen in wartime. And then you have the last 10 minutes of war frenzy, where the Groucho Marx character of Rufus T. Firefly says a number of bitter things about modern warfare and the countries entering into war using their soldiers as war fodder.
You're a brave man. Go and break through the lines. And remember, while you're out there risking life and limb through shot and shell, we'll be in here thinking what a sucker you are. Fiddly, be a post. Remember, you're fighting for this woman's honor, which is probably more than she ever did.
You know, in 1933, we're about 15 years removed from World War I, and just about everybody alive who's an adult can remember that period. And they probably lost friends or relatives in World War I. And you get this sort of moody despair at what World War I is. For example, there's a great essay, go read it online, by an American general named Smedley Butler. It's called War is a Racket. And this bitter essay, which contains a lot of great truths in it, but is really bitter, is doing doing similar kind of work that the Marx Brothers' Duck Soup is doing. Now, one problem with a movie like this, being anarchic as it is it's just saying what's wrong with the world. It doesn't give solutions to problems. In particular, it doesn't give solutions to the problems of war fever. The brothers seemingly have no point of view, and of course, as this is a vaudeville clown show, I would understand why. But be careful with this movie. As far as its philosophy goes, well, there is none. It's trying to be an elaborate joke on nationalism in the run into war. But it's not going to give you a sound point of view from which to live your life. So if you take this movie too far, I think you'll jump into cynicism, maybe even some form of nihilism. I never go that far with this movie because I think the movie is creatively masterful, especially as I've said a couple times in the last 10 minutes. And I watch the final scenes every now and then, probably about once a year. This is likely the brothers' best movie, and if I were you, if you haven't seen a Marx Brothers movie, I would actually start with Duck Soup. Now, if you haven't, please subscribe to this channel and go look at my other videos for more great recommendations and movie content. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.